Okay, joining us now is Glenn Ivey. He is a Democrat who represents his suburban Washington district in Maryland. He's a former federal prosecutor and serves on the House Appropriations Committee. Congressman, thanks for being with us. First, I want to get your reaction to what Chairman Stiles said about voting, et cetera.
Well, it's hard to know where to start. I mean, I think if they want to restore confidence in elections nationally, the president needs to stop lying about actually having won the 2020 election. And the entire Republican Party needs to fess up and acknowledge that he actually lost. Secondly, the bill they're proposing has things in it that, like no mail-in ballots, for example, or, cutting back on mail-in ballots. We've got states that have been doing that safely, effectively for decades now. And I think it's pretty clear that states that have started testing it out, like Maryland, for example, have found that a lot of people like seniors and the disabled really like it. So why are we eliminating that? Because it makes it harder to vote. And Republicans, I think, generally speaking, think fewer voters is better for them. And then think about what he just said a minute ago. Georgia, he pointed to, and he said, well, the Democrats said that if you put these things in, it's going to bring voting down. Guess what? Voting in Georgia apparently was just fine. Why is the Trump administration raiding the Fulton County election offices and taking the ballots away if the election went just fine? And I think we know that the reason is that if you collect the dots, this doesn't make any sense. They're back to this 2020, the election was stolen nonsense. They've got to come out of that if they want to be taken seriously about trying to do things to address whatever problems they think there are with the federal election system.
Okay, I take your point on all of that. And I also understand why Democrats don't want those other things in the bill that you're talking about, regulating how states run their primaries and da-da-da-da-da. I get that. But even most Democrats would agree that voter ID is a good thing. These are the numbers. This is a Pew Research poll. 83% of American adults favor requiring voters to show a photo ID. That includes 82% of Hispanic Americans, 76% of Black Americans, and among Democrats overall, it's 71%. In this bill and others, Republicans, yes, definitely are offering something that Democrats aren't gonna go for. I get that. But on the question just of voter ID, is that something that we can find bipartisan agreement on, that it's time for a voter ID system in the country?
Well, maybe, but 2 quick points. One is they still haven't established that it would address any fraud that's out there, because guess what? They've never demonstrated any kind of fraud in the electoral system. Remember when Trump tried to argue that 60 courts across the country, federal and state, Democrat, Republican, all rejected it entirely. So, it's a solution in search of a problem in one big way. And the other part is what I just said. If they really want to be credible on this, they need to make sure that they're doing everything they can to move away from the lies about 2020.
Okay, turning now to your gig for the week, which is the looming deadline for Homeland Security funding, which falls on Friday. Am I right to expect that we're going to see at least a partial government shutdown here? What do you make of the prospects for a deal?
Well, I'm sorry, I just looked away because my
shutdown.
My computer's losing power.
Before we lose the juice, we going to have a shutdown on Friday or not a shutdown?
We may well have a shutdown. I'm not sure how it's going to play out. It's odd to me that the Republicans are opposing basic requirements that 18,000 police departments across the country follow. I mean, like no mask, for example, identifying yourself, having judicial warrants before you go into houses. All of those kinds of things are the things we're asking for. We aren't asking for anything that the police departments don't already do.
Okay, before your battery runs out, I have to ask you about this. Maryland Democrats are hotter than a crab boil about gerrymandering. The State House of Delegates is ready for a little revenge on Texas with a map that would try to squeeze out your state's lone Republican congressman. But in the state Senate, also democratically controlled, some say it would actually backfire and put seats at risk. I know this is not your job, but there's a lot of passion from younger Democrats in Maryland, like this handsome young man, Delegate Julian Ivey, who I think you may know. He said this was about being, quote, Maryland strong. You've been supportive broadly about the idea of fighting fire with fire. What do you say to Maryland Senate Democrats and their concerns?
I agree with Julian Ivey, obviously, and he looks like he's wearing one of my ties there, by the way. But in any event, look, this is something that the Republicans started in 2024. They took the 3 seats in North Carolina from Democrats. That's actually why we're not in the majority right now. If they hadn't done that, we'd be in the majority. And then Trump re-upped this a few months ago when he called Texas and said, I need 5 seats. So that's how we got on this track. Maryland hadn't planned to be here doing this. And I think in other circumstances we wouldn't. But I think we've got to fight fire with fire.
All right. If you had stolen a tie from your father's closet for a speech on the Maryland House floor, you would know him already. But if you don't, there he is, Congressman Glenn Ivey. We thank you.